It's July the 5th, 2023, and you know why you're here, so let's kick this off right and introduce the players. Hey, I'm Gerissar, a WoW esports aficionado.
Hey guys, I'm Bigmoran, a future key depleter in Mythic Plus.
And I'm TreesapJake, an elemental shaman enthusiast. I've gone back.
You're back to Ellie.
Yeah.
That's okay.
I think the most shocking part is the fact that Big is depleting keys.
Yeah. I'm okay. We got to unpackage this for a sec. I'm actually not shocked you're going back to Ellie. That's your love. You're returning back to your home. So welcome back. Glad to hear you're back to the blue. Get ready to be trained.
Of course.
Big keys now?
Yeah, and we're making Mythic content now for Skill Cap. And we just released a new PvE channel. And I figure if I'm writing guides about Mythic Dungeons, I should immerse myself completely in the experience. We're working with MDI players to make the guides, but I want to at least feel what other people feel when they play Mythics. So,
did you feel it?
I did. I think I got some glimpse. I could, you can kind of easily. There's a lot of overlap actually between like Mythic Plus healing and like solo shuffle healing, for instance. I mean, the same sort of pain points and the same sort of mistakes that people make.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a lot of crossover, and so I think it should be fairly easy to transition once it's a lot of stuff to remember though.
Yeah.
But it's one long. Every dungeon is like one long dance, right? You just got to memorize all the little moves, and then eventually it'll be a coherent experience. But for now, I'm just kind of learning the steps.
True. And you're right. It's definitely knowing the dance. Although the change of affix every week kind of changes the dance step a little bit. Sometimes it's faster, sometimes it's slower. Sometimes it's a waltz, and sometimes it's a two-step. But
yep.
All right, cool. Are you doing it through LFG? Because I mean, if you want, you're definitely going to experience the crossover of community between.
No, I haven't gone into LFG yet. I was just playing with my friend who's a tank, and so we had a pug. I think 2 people, but it was me, a tank, and then a boomkin was in the group.
Nice.
So yeah, I'm fortunate enough to know a tank, which I hear is a very important thing to have in your pocket in the Mythic dungeon scene. If you know a tank and a healer, you're set.
Yes. Just like in PvP, right? If you know a healer, you're set. I will say not every tank is created equal though. I like Prop Paladin is quite easy to play, I feel, just with a lot of the shutdowns it has, versus Vengeance Demon Hunter. I don't think it's quite as impressive in this season as it was in, let's say, Shadowlands. I think Vengeance was very important in Shadowlands, but this one I'm not so sold on yet.
I know Prop Paladins are really popular, so I was thinking of you guys because I know I think you play Prop Paladin, right? Or did?
That's my Mythic character.
You got a good one. you lucked out.
It's pretty much all it is, right? It's roll of the dice at the beginning of the expansion. Come on, Papa needs a good class to play. Well, I mean, hey, welcome. That's awesome. I know the PvE scene, the amount of people in it is much bigger than it is in the PvP scene. So I can only imagine this is only going to be a good thing for Skill Capped and for the videos you make. Over on YouTube there. So I guess should we remind everybody that we have a bit of a discount link that people can use for that?
Absolutely.
All right.
Absolutely. In the show notes.
Yeah, in the show notes. skillcapped.com/wow/pricing/plans #technically PvP. And that will get you a small discount. Save you a little bit of money and get access to some great content. Speaking of great content, though, well, why don't we get into the nitty-gritty pass here and see what Jake came up with this time? As soon as I can remember what button. There is a button.
This likely won't be a clean fight, so keep your distance, eh?
You think I'd have that down pat by now.
Yeah, I was about to say, to be honest, it has been like a couple of weeks since you pressed it. So, and I know after it's been a little time for me, I forget how to press the button. So,
yeah, it's just like a little muscle memory. I just gotta remember what to press and when to press it. Sorry, I guess we should probably make mention in case anybody's wondering. 182, the one you did there, Jake, with level add-in, it didn't record well. It streamed well, but it didn't record well, so we end up losing the audio to that. So hopefully we'll get level admin back again to talk about Rets, but in the meantime, we're moving on. So yeah, Need Greed Pass. What's the topic you got for us tonight there, Jake?
So I felt pretty inspired by. I mean, Big's been tweeting loads of stuff recently, and obviously, as I'm incredibly bored at work, it's been a wonderful source of entertainment. And it got me thinking, like, what if with Need, Greed, and Pass, at least for my turn this week, what if we opted to, do some like quality of life change that people, like a slightly biased quality of life change that people might want, but the flip side being is there's sort of like an affix for it in the sense that, okay, yeah, you can get rid of this, but you have to kind of have this. So let's say you're going into a game and you're about to queue into someone and they have this ability, you can get rid of that. But as a consequence, you have to take this. So that's kind of the idea behind this, sort of a tit for tat, as it were. Right. So the three options I've got today are remove Axe Toss, but you have to remove your class's main CC. So Axe Toss goes, but you lose your CC, your main CC, your one of your CCs. You remove High Winds, but you no longer have a kick. Or you remove Cloak or Evasion, but you can't wall. So those are the three options.
I think it's one of the harder Need Greed passes because, yeah, it's not so obvious. I think this is by far one of the most difficult ones.
Yep. This is what happens when I spend 30 minutes beforehand kind of going, I really need a really good Need Greed pass this time. It's my turn. This is what happens.
So I guess I'll go first. And here's my logic behind this. Like, I obviously don't like Axe Toss. High Winds, I mean, I like it because I'm a druid, but I don't necessarily think it's good for boomkins to have it. And Cloak and Evasion, I'm a bit indifferent about those. Like, I think they're really strong cooldowns. So I'm more interested, I think, in the second part. What I have to give up. That's what I'm gonna base my Need, Greed, and Pass on. So I'm actually going to need removing High Winds, but no longer having a kick. I mean, I don't have a kick anyway when I play Astro Druid, but imagine I did. I wouldn't mind not having a kick. Kicking this expansion is really just kind of weird anyway because of precog, right? It feels bad sometimes to even press your kick, knowing that there is that inherent risk. So I'm gonna need getting rid of my kick in order to remove High Winds. Then I'm gonna greed on removing Cloak or Evasion, but not being able to wall. I think right now, obviously, sub-rogues are pretty well budgeted with defensive cooldowns. And I mean, this would butcher assassination, but whatever. I don't mind if rogues can struggle a bit. So I'm going to greed on removing Cloak and Evasion. And I'm going to pass on removing Axe Toss, but also removing my main CC. Even though I hate Axe Toss the most out of any of these abilities, I would rather be Axe Toss than never being able to press Cyclone again. So, and Cyclone against a Demo Warlock. So that's my top three.
That that's so interesting about that is that obviously it's coming from your mind as a resto druid, and that's the thing that I thought was really interesting is that okay, you can get rid of Axe Toss, but what is your how strong is your main character CC? And obviously for druid, that's quite a hefty negative to take. in that regard. Also, as an FYI, when I play with my friend who is Rested Druid, he does have a kick now. He specs quite a lot into Feral to be able to kick. So we've got 2 kicks now, which is great. So just wanted to make that as an FYI.
I just want to point out, Nethy in chat pointed out, he said, remove high winds because nobody presses kick in his shuffles anyways.
I mean, that is based and true.
I was trying so hard not to laugh out loud when Big was talking and he typed that in chat. I'm gonna need on cloak evasion, but can't wall. That's I think that one is definitely a good one. I think although wall is beneficial and important, especially if I'm playing my warlock, it's very important. But I feel like there's enough things between off heals if you're playing with a hybrid DPS, and enough things that a healer can do to keep you going. It's just one other defensive that you can scratch off the list of having to chunk through within the 2-minute time frame of kit to be able to catch the win. So that's what I'm going to go for. And then I'm going to greed on high winds because only because I don't want to lose Axe Toss or my main CC. So that's my choice, and that's the only reason why I'm picking greed for the high winds, is just because I don't want to lose out in the CC. Because being able to fear people and stun them is important to me with Shadow Fury. But all right, Jake, you're the one that came up with this. I want to hear your thoughts. What are your picks?
I mean, this is it is a very difficult question, but I'm going to kind of go at it again from Shaman point of view. It's hard. I feel like I probably will do the same as Big and need on the high winds, because with the evolution of obviously of precog and everything, I mean, and also the nerfs to kick duration for Shaman, it's not massive, like not really a big problem. I've got a lot of other interrupts, a lot of ways to stop cast, stop that sort of thing, like grounding, knock, lasso, hex, and everything like that. So I think I probably would take that as my need, just because I don't think it'll be too much, and also I think just like one less MS effect is going to be pretty big. The next bit is what I'm going to really struggle with. I think Axe Toss is really bad. I think it's really difficult, because I think I probably am going to take Axe Toss as agreed, just because if I get rid of my main CC, that's Hex. I'm not really too fussed about it. I don't often get that many Hexes out. I still have Lasso as well, so that's kind of, I mean, I don't know. It depends on what you count as your main CC. So I'm going to say it's Hex, because Hex is the kind of the big one. So I'll if get rid of Hex, that's gone. But then also Axe Toss. I feel like I had a game of today against a Demo Lock, and I think I would have a much better time with it gone. So I'll happily take that. And then I'm going to pass on the remove cloak and evasion, because I would much rather have my wall, because I just need it into all of these rogue teams, because they absolutely 100% crush me without it. So yeah, that's kind of my pick for that. I mean, it is a very difficult one, because the thing is, I think they're all so close. Like, you would ideally want all of this. You'd want to get rid of all of them. But there's too many like negatives, because it would be so easy for me just to go like, okay, Axe Toss, high winds, cloak / evasion, what are you going to do? And all 3 of us would be like, need cloak and evasion, need maybe greed Axe Toss, and then pass on high winds, because although it's annoying, it's not the worst than those 2. But when you add that kind of caveat, I think it sort of makes you kind of consider, actually, okay, yeah, I would probably rather have this still in my toolkit. I mean, I'm a big fan of ban and pick style stuff, and I think if Blizzard were to revolutionize Arena, that bringing in that sort of pre-game sort of stuff might be a very interesting way of doing it. But anyway, rant over. That's my choice.
I like it. I do like the fact that it wasn't just okay these 3 abilities, but it was like, you can't just you can't have your cake and eat it too. There'd be you have to give up something. So I think that's worth it. I don't know.
Yeah,
I as much as people dislike axe toss, I'm pretty sure they only dislike it because it's the pet that does the kick. Then they can still do the interrupt, and it's outside of a player's GCD. Like you could be casting as a warlock and then still axe toss, or you can be CC'd and the axe toss can still go off, right? Like that's the big issue, right, Big?
Yeah, and I think that's kind of why Demo is. I mean, geez, I hope someone doesn't hate me for saying this, but I think that's why Demo is like a soft counter to Sub Rogue, because you can, the rogue can be dancing on you, stunning you, and you can just stop the rogue with your pet. No other class besides, I guess, hunters to some degree with Roar of Sacrifice. Like no other classes can really do anything similar to that. I mean, some classes can obviously wall while being stunned, but being able to control while stunned is kind of crazy, because it effectively, it can cause a gap in the stun lock, and you can port, and you can just be really disruptive with that single stun. You can just instantly shut down a kill. So just the efficiency of a cooldown like Axe Toss, I think, is what makes it so good. It's 30-second cooldown, usable by the pet, usable while stunned, or in any CC really. I mean, of course, the pet can't be CC'd, but I mean that's again like it's quite. There's very few situations where your pet is like going to be CC'd and on a go, unless the team is trying really hard. You're probably playing against really good players if they're CCing your pet before they're going you. So I just think the efficiency.
Can you clone it? Can't you clone the pet?
Yeah. You can CC the pet to prevent the axe toss, but I mean that means you have to give up. You're doing something extra to prevent a mechanic from stopping you. It's kind of inconvenient to do all this other extra stuff.
True.
Yeah,
and then once the CC ends, they can just like axe toss you out of it. Like
anyways. Yeah.
I think there's definitely a bit more like prevalence on CCing the pet in Classic rather than retail.
Yeah, I feel like in retail it's more like an afterthought, whereas in Classic it's kind of like a built into a lot of strategies. Like that's the thing. That's what I've noticed when watching like Classic streams. A lot of it is like really strategical. Like you need to know like these nuances of every matchup, and all that stuff is kind of feels a bit more optional in Dragonflight. You don't have to do any of that. It's good, but you don't have to do any of that most of the time.
True. The meta does allow a little bit more brute force. I remember way back in the day where we would like banish each other's pets because you have 2 warlocks going head to head.
Yeah,
and that kind of stuff. But yep. Well, as always, we're interested to hear what other people think. So head on over to the Discord. We'll have a thread there, and you can tell us what your need, greed, and pass are for Jake's ideas here. In the meantime, let's quickly talk about some of the upcoming WoW PvP events.
Get in there and fight! Stop hiding!
All right, upcoming events. So the Trial Exploit team is hosting their Bread and Circuses Cup number 7. That's going to be this weekend. Nope. Is that this weekend? Or my weekend's screwed up. Next weekend, on the 15th of July. Following, actually on the same weekend, is the Armed Forces Dungeon League, and that's going to be the Mythic Plus dungeon on the 14th to the 16th of July. This weekend coming up is Cup number 4 for Blizzard events. The qualifiers are actually happening today. EU just finished. I think NA just started for that. And then we'll have some MDI Great Push throughout the rest of July into August. And then the AWC and the MDI Grand Finals are going to be the weekend of the 11th and the weekend of the 18th, respectively. And like we did for season 1, AWC is going to start off with a gauntlet right before the grand finals, and that's going to be the what's it? So if I remember correctly, it was the top 4 teams make it to the grand finals, and then the other ones have to battle through the gauntlet to see who gets the last 2 spots, right?
For
I think
the
so.
AWC,
Yeah.
I think there's a top 3 teams automatically made it. I don't remember because
Okay. Ooh,
I don't
maybe,
know.
yeah. Top 3, and then
'Cause
the fourth
on the
spot is only 5-4.
on the broadcast, yeah, they had like a little glowing border around the top 3 teams. So I just assumed that's how, I was making some
That would be
assumptions there. Could be
smart.
wrong. Yeah.
That's the smart way. Okay. I you know what? I'm assuming you're right because I obviously don't know. I should have studied that beforehand, but I forgot to. Other than that, that's all I remember for the events or that I know of. If anybody happens to know of any other WoW esports events, community or whatever, let us know and we'll happily signal boost them and let everybody know. In the meantime, let's actually get to why everybody's here and get into the subject of analysis, and we'll talk about patch 10.1.5.
I'm gonna light you up, sweet cheeks.
All right, 10.1.5. Just a minor little half patch coming through with a whole lot of stuff. First and foremost, I got to ask both of you. I'm going to start with Jake first. How do you feel about these half patches being from quality of life to actually like some substantive amounts of changes?
I mean, it's the thing is, and this is sort of there's the precedent set by Blizzard for quite a while. Is that half patches brought in some balancing changes, some slight extra like tweaks and stuff like that. Nothing major. And obviously you'd have the kind of big changes happen in sort of the patch, the 0.1s, the 0.2s, 0.3s, and that's kind of consistent, and people can kind of go, okay, yeah, I remember 8.3 or 5.3 and whatever and all that sort of stuff, and you kind of go, okay, yeah, that was when that was good, and that was how that. At the minute, you can't really do that because every half patch brings in some major, massive change, which is halfway through a season, and so you kind of feel a little bit weird and lost and you're not sure really what's going on. And I'm not a massive fan of it. I'm a big proponent of small changes consistently instead of kind of these sort of big sort of changes that seem to be happening every sort of half patch with like reworks to entire classes and stuff like that. And I'm just sort of kind of going, well, all this is doing is sort of like we've figured out what a meta is, and then suddenly halfway through, the meta completely upheaves itself and nobody knows what's going on. So you have to relearn that. So by the time anyone's figured out what kind of works and what doesn't, it's the end of the season. So it's kind of, it feels like we're having 2 seasons within one, and it's a bit frustrating, I guess. But that's my feelings on that one.
Okay. All right. And how about you, Big? Do you like these bigger half patches?
I think it's really cool that there's the potential possibility for the game to change quite a bit. I think though that there is a tendency for there to be maybe too many changes. Like I distinctly remember, I think it was the .07 patch, this expansion.
Mm-hmm.
Like everything up to that point was like glorious. Like the beginning of this expansion felt really, really nice. Of course, there's always going to be balance issues, but it felt relatively balanced. Everyone was having a good time. And then they did the Red Paladin rework, right? And suddenly just like everything like fell apart. PvP just dipped in popularity instantly. So I think if these bigger mid-season patches are a bit careful in what they change, I think it's a good thing. But if we see these, I believe mages are getting redesigned in this patch, and I think holy paladins as well. Can't think of all the ones off the top of my head, but I think there's a potential for some classes to just become really, really good and really potentially oppressive, and I think that's just kind of where people might be a bit concerned. I think like just messing around with frost mage on the PTR, you can do some crazy damage. So I think that's going to be something that will be tuned early on. So as long as like there's kind of the retroactive tuning, so that we don't have a Ret Paladin version 2, I think I tend to like these major changes.
It's okay. I'll be honest. Content wise, things to do. I enjoy them. PvP wise, sorry, and as a content creator, I really like this because we don't have any droughts. Like there's constantly stuff to be talking about, and I really enjoy that.
Yeah.
As a PvPer, I actually dislike these. It feels like they're going so fast that they're not able to catch the PvP impacts. Dot 7 is a perfect example where a lot of people were telling them we're raising the flags that this was going to be very disruptive. It got pushed through anyways, and it's almost like the PvP council or wherever they decide to do all the PvP tuning. We're all on vacation or something like that, and weren't able to be consulted beforehand, and so it just shipped as was. And on the other hand, I do like the idea. A lot of people have talked about the want to have some regular tuning to try to keep the meta fresh, so that you don't have 25 weeks or more of the same meta. And I like that idea. But I think these kind of major swing changes is a bit too much, and they've already said with augmentation that they're going to nerf some of the abilities, but without seeing what those nerfs are, I'm very cautious. I'm reserved in saying, trying to cheer on, saying, yeah, Blizzard's got this, and in Blizzard I have faith, because honestly I don't have faith in Blizzard's PvP tuning anymore, at least not on the get-go. It seems always like there's not enough practice on the PTR, enough data for them, that they just ship it as is, and then they wait until the live data comes through and they can see exactly just how messed up stuff is before they start tuning it. That's my... Okay, I'm gonna get off my soapbox now.
No, but it's a fair enough thing. It's totally a fair thing to say. I mean, we have been completely let down so much. I mean, you only have to go onto WoW Twitter to see the kind of feeling that people have with the tuning, and I think that's the key thing that you mentioned about. Big mentioned about the start of the expansion, because Dragonflight at the start was amazing. It was so good. And they just it wasn't really the fact that they did all this changing. It's just, or the fact that they were doing tuning at all. It was just the fact that they did so many tuning patches that were just massive swings. Like, they were huge. They were just really, really big, and they didn't need to be that big, at all. They were obscene. And they were there were buffs to classes that didn't need to be buffed, that just made them obscene. Like, Hunters, I'm looking at you. Stuff like that. And it was just it just became really obtrusive. And then obviously what happened with Rets, and the fact that they were left for so long in that sort of state. So I mean, for me, it's it is depressing, but I think the only thing we can do is really hope and pray that they kind of look and they make the changes. I know that I don't think any changes are going to come without us being vocal and without us letting them know how we feel, and just trying to keep doing what we can. But realistically speaking, obviously you need to hire someone that has a bit more control in that regard. But I don't know. I think I'm worried about augmentation. I've already have people messaging me going don't worry, bro, we'll play twos and we'll abuse the craziness that's going to come from them. So I'm like, are we though? Do I want that? No, I don't. I'm just, nothing's worse than really obscenely strong classes being in every single instance of PvP. I mean, that was the thing with Rets, right? That was the thing that made everyone not want to queue, is that they were so unbelievably strong that you just had the worst time queuing anything. So, I think that's something they need to learn from.
Yeah. We've seen how well Blizzard has learned from its mistakes and how quickly they pivot. So maybe in 11.1 we'll see. Yeah. Okay. Enough about me being snarky. Let's get into this. Patch notes. We have a whole bunch of information that Blizzard has provided everybody. We got the forum posts. They've been doing videos. They started doing some interviews or scheduling those out. All of them PvE once again, but that's what that is. Hopefully there's glean some information from there. Hopefully somebody asks some PvP questions at some of those. But in the meantime, we can talk about the core pieces. So we have time rifts. So this is going to be a new thing that's going to be coming in. It's going to be, I think, 2 stages. So one's going to be open world, and then that's going to lead into an instance where you go in and kill a baddie and get the loots. You got the mega dungeon. So that's a 5-person party, 8 boss dungeon. Definitely going to be harder. It's going to be similar to what we saw in Shadowlands, I guess. Larger dungeon, going to take longer, and definitely going to have some harder mechanics. It's going to be kind of like a verge of a normal mode raid, if you will. They've added in the Old Continent and Kalimdor, some dragon riding. It's called the Kalimdor Cup. And that's where you're going to be able to fly around in different zones of Kalimdor and do the dragon racing with the rings and everything. And then there's the new warlock races and pet customization. And then, as we already talked about, the augmentation version of the evoker class specialization. So first and foremost, I guess how we just talked about it. So for the time rifts, because it's open world, the first part, definitely going to be a hotbed for world PvP. I think we're going to see, I'm expecting to see some server issues, especially if some of the major world PvP communities get together and really push into that. I could definitely see some server lag, similar to what we saw in BFA. I think with some of the world PvP stuff, with Rune Gaming coming in with multi-server queue-ins and just wrecking server blades.
Rune Gaming, that's a name drop if I've ever heard one. I don't think Jake knows what Rune Gaming is, but it's like a massive world PvP community on NA. Like they are out there in the world battling at all times.
They are
still battling to this day.
If you haven't been ganked by like Rune Gaming, you haven't been playing WoW long enough. Like it's inevitable.
And I'm expecting it. I'm expecting that we're going to be doing this. If you are flagged for war mode out there doing one of these time rifts, I can almost guarantee you that you're going to get server slammed by multiple 40-person raids from one of these communities coming in to just dance across the whole thing and kill. So really like that though. I like the idea that there's some possibility for world PvP. I don't like the idea of people bogging down servers purposefully just to win. That's there's more Ty talking exactly. They did in Agitar. They'd they'd zone in multiple raids into a zone and just lag it out. Everybody would just like die. You wouldn't know what happened.
Didn't Asmongold used to do that on like EU servers? He'd kind of like load into like an RP server, and everyone from his 32,000 people watching would log into that one server and do a little march from like Stormwind or like Goldshire to Stormwind or something, and it completely lagged out the server, because I remember those used to be a thing.
Yeah, he
there's the infamous Swifty banned video.
Yeah.
I mean, Swifty was banned for he didn't mean to lag out a server, but he was streaming and a bunch of people had logged on, I don't know, Darkspear or something.
Didn't they take a boat? They took a boat.
I don't remember.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that's what it was. Is they all hopped in and they went to grab a boat from one zone to another, and because it had like a 40-person or like multiple 40-person raid server, like literally like switching over zones at the same time, it killed the server. So anyway, so there's that. The mega dungeon. So this is neat, I guess. So this is the two together. So out of the time rifts, we're going to get paracausal tokens, which we can use to buy paracausal items. And then in the dungeon, there's some special effect gear. There's some trinkets and some weapons. These ones I'm a little concerned about, because there's been some flags raised, but I haven't heard anything whatsoever about PvP tuning on these. There's only been PvE tuning. So is that one of them?
Yeah, I just linked one of them in the chat. I mean, that's a pretty good effect. I mean, if you scale the item level to 450, that staff does 200k damage But I'm assuming,
Mhm.
I mean, typically with these sort of things, like they'll either disable the effect in PvP, or they'll
Mhm.
just like slap a 60% modifier on it. So
I hope
I
so.
wouldn't be too concerned. Yeah, I wouldn't be too concerned about stuff like this. Usually they do a pretty good job preventing any goofiness. I mean, you know, people like maybe Rex Troy are going to figure some stuff out, but other than that, I wouldn't worry too much.
Okay. I'm personally, I was worried because I went looking through. I only glanced at some of the paracausals, and I saw that they still had a 1-for-1 PvP modifier on them, so
Yeah.
they're still full strength. The I didn't look at the mega dungeon ones. Somebody's saying in chat that apparently they've already been nerfed, so maybe I'm a little late on that, or just didn't get there. But yeah. So those two, I mean, if they nerf it, great. There may be one or two where you might, if you get lucky and you can get it, and then just terrorize some people into BG until Blizzard nerfs it. Have fun. Please don't do it while I'm there. That's all I ask. uh, pardon me.
I'm gonna make my NA account and specifically go and do that just to terrorize you when you're in the
Uh,
BGs. Snarky.
all right, and I'm not queuing for the first couple weeks of 10.1.5. The old content dungeon writing, I consider this PvP, especially if they have the dragon races going on. I was really expecting to see some more community events for these. There's been a few, but I haven't really seen a lot of community events for dragon racing. I'm not sure if people just haven't figured out a way to do it tournament wise, or there wasn't enough uptake on the few that happened that they just didn't move on. So, but I'm actually looking forward to doing some dragon racing in Kalimdor. Those are some fun zones.
Yeah.
Winter Spring should be a really fun time.
I honestly I sort of sold Dragonflight to my friends by saying, if you do dragon riding, it'll be the best thing you've done in WoW in years. And that's the truth. It genuinely, like, Dragonflight, yeah, PvP hasn't been great, but everything else, every other single part of it has been absolutely fantastic. And I mean, hats off to the devs for that. It's beautiful. I just wish they could just do something for PvP. That's my only wish.
Yes.
But I mean, dragon riding is insane. Like, I think when they bring that to Kalimdor, and bring it to all the other places,
Mm-hmm.
there'll be nothing stopping really. Wow. So
All right. Which continent do you think they're going to do next? Do you think they're going to do Eastern Kingdoms or Northrend?
I think it makes sense to do Eastern Kingdoms, but Northrend would be insane. That'd be a really cool one to do before Wrath ends. Maybe when
Right?
ICC's out or something like that.
Oh.
Well, probably. I wonder if we're gonna go back to Northrend at all because of the oh gosh, that one zone, Dragon something, has a lot of relevance, I believe, to the lore of Dragonflight. I forget what the one with the
Galacrons.
snow. Which one? Yeah, where
Galacrons.
Galcran's
Yeah.
body is, skeleton is, and then Deathwing was like impaled on the whatever that
Well
building
rest.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So maybe we'll go back there with our neat little dragons.
You know what
Fly
I think they
around.
should do? I know this is going to sound super weird, but wouldn't it be really cool if like how Cataclysm changed zones?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What if in a future expansion, like they changed an old zone that we've been to? Like, for example, let's say we're looking at Northrend post post obviously Wrath of Lich King, new Lich King is there, post Shadowlands, everything like that that's happened, and then post Dragonflight for whatever reason, we go back there and there's a new enemy that's arisen from, I don't know, the depths or something like that. That kind of thing. Like, but it's like repurposed Northrend with the same zones, but kind of a different feel, kind of like in the same way that Cataclysm did that. But I don't know, maybe that wouldn't work. But I just think it'd be really cool to kind of utilize those zones that we've been to, stuff that's in Azeroth.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's been kind of a like a I think a desire people have had is a return to Azeroth, or a return to the main continents. We're always
Yeah.
going somewhere, like we're going to
Yeah.
space, going to a different planet, going wherever, and it's kind of cool to revisit the old world. Of course, though, people are kind of sensitive to that sort of stuff, like
Mm-hmm.
the people were not happy about the Cataclysm redesign. But
Nope.
I think those, I think that's a weird complaint personally. But
Yeah.
I like the old world. It's very nostalgic, so why not?
Yeah.
The
Well,
game has to evolve, doesn't it? So
it does, and it kind of already has. So I'll say Cataclysm, when it's not just that they changed the world, they changed the way the questing worked, and I think that
Yeah.
changed the feel of zones and leveling throughout all of the world. And I think that's the part that people really disliked, and that's the reason why classically, with classic and leveling, your character is a story, but it's a grind. It's not easy. It's not. After Cataclysm, everything was so streamlined that
Yeah.
you didn't really have as much of a struggle, right?
Right.
You didn't have to join up with somebody to kill that monster. You didn't have to run around and spend that 30 minutes killing who knows how many boars to return 15 pieces of meat to whoever in the hut because they couldn't leave. Stuff like that. And I think that that's really the complaint, was that it changed and also with Cataclysm, it brought flying to the old world zones, which again changed the feel of the zones, because now you weren't stuck to the ground running around everywhere. You saw griffins flying all over the place over your head. So could they do it differently? Sure. Will they do it? I'm suspecting that the devs are very hesitant to try to do that again, only because of the backlash from what they thought was a good idea and how the community reacted to that. Again, like you said, people are very sensitive to the old world, to that experience, and they don't want to lose it. That said, I mean, yeah, if you go to Northrend now, especially to ICC, and you look up, the skybox is still shattered. There's still a whole bunch of stuff. There's still Scourge running around doing everything. So could they do something there? Sure. I would suspect that they might go back, even instead of Wrath, instead of Northrend, might do something even at Mist of Pandaria, because Shadowlands already did some changes to Northrend. They haven't done anything in Pandaria Land for a while. I think the last time they did anything, oh shoot, which expansion was it? Legion, or was it BFA, where they brought in those I think it was BFA with the corruption, right? Where all of a sudden you had all the purple stuff show up, and the nether worms and all that stuff show up in all the zones.
Yeah. So in the corruption, when you had the kind of like the black assault thing from
yeah. So that's what. So I think that's the most recent stuff. So I'm suspecting that if they do anything else, it might be there, but I think that has been soon enough as well that they probably are. We're probably going to be looking at another continent or another space adventure in 11 dot whatever before we start seeing another impact to the world that's going to create another layer of zoning or phasing to any sort of area. But I do like the idea of having things interact with some of the old, give us reason to go back to the old zones. I do like that.
Yeah. I think it's interesting when they rework stuff. Now, obviously, I think the problem with WoW is that we have the original lore that they came up with that was cool and interesting, but then obviously that nostalgia for us from like Warcraft 3 and the Frozen Throne, and obviously Warcraft 2, etc., kind of dipped away once we started basically defeating all of the major bad guys. We had once the Legion was defeated and the last old god was defeated, well, where'd you go there? You then that's where Shadowlands came from. And I think obviously most people from the lore perspective will then go, okay, yeah, from this point onwards, everything's felt weird. And I will agree, I have felt weird personally about the lore since Shadowlands, because that's when it started to get a bit kind of like kooky and a bit weird. Things were kind of like, okay, yeah, I don't like, they're sort of rewriting a lot of the interesting lore that made sense and kind of grounded the characters, and then kind of made it not so. And then I think in Dragonflight as well, they're kind of like, oh, they've suddenly remembered that they had this birthplace that's here, and you're kind of like, okay, great. Where did we go from there? What's the perspective? And obviously, the perspective being, it always feels like we need to get bigger and bigger and stronger, because the enemies need to match like what we've basically defeated, which is we defeated an extra dimensional god, and then and now I don't know what the last boss of Dragonflight is going to be, but it's kind of like it's perpetually like stronger and stronger. So I think it'd be really cool if they kind of like almost did a hard reset on kind of like the sort of level and the kind of like the way that we've kind of gone up, like how in vanilla we kind of feel like, you know, kind of we're peasants to begin with, and then we become something stronger, and then we go on and fight you know, we go fight people
Ragnaros.
like, you know, yeah, Ragnaros and stuff like that. Like, yeah, although that is like a fire god, we have come from a point which is quite a low down. If they kind of come with that aspect, kind of return to kind of this is the hero's journey kind of thing, instead of sort of, you know, you already have defeated all these things. Like, what if there was like a time reset, like maybe not this expansion, but another expansion where at the end of it there's a time reset that kind of brings us back to what we or like a jump to the future or something, like that kind of idea of a WoW 2, where we kind of jump to the future, and it's like many generations on with different problems and different characters, and kind of like, you know, it's Anduin's kid that's sort of the king or queen or whatever.
If dude,
kind of thing.
if at the end of this some gnome shows up in a flying train and goes, Marty, we got to go back to the future, I'm gonna lose it.
Yeah,
I'm gonna lose it. Okay. I personally don't want to become a peasant again, though. I don't. I don't. I like feeling powerful. I like running around and doing things. I know it's not everybody's cup of tea. I don't know. I find that's one of the hard things. Like sometimes the storyline is supportive in the way where we do a bunch of things, but then we get up to the big baddie. We're being helped. We're doing things with those you know, the aspects, the heroes of the realm, and that stuff. But that's kind of peeled away, and slowly we've ended up being always up at the front all by ourselves, and then the rest of them show up afterwards. And I think that's a bit troublesome. I would like to see at the end of this where you know, when we're up into whatever the big baddie is, that we're fighting with Alexstrasza and Nozdormu and you know, and the others. I want them there. I don't want it to be you know, us doing all the work and then them showing up and like, you know, poking with a toothpick and saying, aha, you know, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, this is a perfect segue to the up and coming spec in 10.15. Augmentation of Ochre. You know, it's fine to not be the hero sometimes, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's fine to support your friends who are stronger than you, which is exactly what Augmentation of Ochre is, I guess, going to be doing. Do you guys want to talk about that?
Yes. Save me from more lore conversation. Let's do this.
So
go for it. You do it.
I think Augmentation of Ochre is very interesting. I know people are, you know, there's a lot of doomsayers right now on Twitter, on the forums, whatever, you know, warning about Augmentation of Ochre. And I understand where they're coming from. I think right now in WoW PvP, it's become quite apparent that damage modifiers are quite strong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like for instance, if you watch the recent AWC, you saw Trill playing a one dance build, which is a slight variation. Well, not a slight variation. It's a pretty dramatic variation of the standard rogue build currently, which is kind of built more around control. So Trill sacrifices his control for a few extra damage modifiers. I think there's like 3 of them: Deeper Daggers, there's some end cap talent, and then he plays with Thistle Tea, which is quite unusual as a sub rogue. So just with these 3 additional modifiers, he's able to do dramatically more burst.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is the concern people are having with Augmentation of Ochres. We already know how powerful damage modifiers can be, and I think Augmentation of Ochre by memory has at least three damage modifiers they can put up, I believe, at the same time for their group members. They have their core ability. I don't remember what it's called. I should probably pull it up right now. But their mastery by default buffs people's, I believe, main stat.
Yeah, so Evan
Or-
Might increases 4
Yeah.
nearest allies' primary stat by a percentage of your own, and then it causes your eruption to deal more damage for 10 seconds. Your other spells are extended for the duration of these effects. 1.5 second cast, 30-second cooldown. So
You know what?
yeah.
So I was going to say augmentation evoker just reminds me of double healer in TBC.
Yeah.
This reminds.
It's kind of, I think it's probably most similar to like a prot paladin almost, you know, like a prot paladin from Shadowlands. Like maybe they're playing with Blessing of Summer. Like I'm sure you guys remember that ability. It's still in the game, but you know, paladins. I mean, we don't really see them in any prot paladins these days.
Do we even talk about paladins anymore? Sorry.
Unless they're reds, probably not. But yeah, I think just the fact that there's more modifiers now in the game is going to be really scary for some specs, specifically ones that already kind of bang really hard, like Sub Rogue. So having those additional, especially in a main stat buff, is really big. You know,
Yeah.
I don't. It's kind of funny. The number one damage modifier, I believe, on Sub Rogue is the the Sophic Devotion proc. You know, because rogues can get 2 weapon enchants, and when they both are proc, that's an additional 2k agility, which is pretty insane. And so, like, and you know, imagine that plus an additional modifier buffing main stat. Plus, they have this thing called like Fate Mirror, I think, where they can like replicate some of the damage that their partner is doing. I mean, it's a lot of just stacking stuff in a game where stuff is already being stacked quite high. I mean, Shadowlands I think was the most extreme example. Like Windwalker Monk, like remember that era where they would just get their modifiers up and just one tap you. So yeah, I think that's people's concern. I'm just, you know, I'm eager to see how it plays out. You know, it's one thing to speculate about how these things will actually affect PvP, but I want to see them like actually in arena, because I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I like to theory craft. I'm like, oh, what if I stack this and this, and like, what if I wait for this proc and do all this? And you know, you can do some pretty big damage, but it's like really difficult to like set things up like that perfectly every single time. So I don't think it's going to be as like free as people think it's going to be. I think there's going to be a bit of nuance with how it's played. You know, I don't think it's just
True.
going to be completely broken.
So I remember, and I could not find it, but I remember there being a communication somewhere, be it a tweet or something, saying that they're aware of that for this one ability, and it is going to be nerfed by some percentage for PvP. I think the idea being is that whatever the percentage of primary stat is going to be lowered, but not to the point of obsolescence or inadequacy for PvP, just like reduction, so that again these modifiers don't create a crazy one-shot capability like people are talking about. That said, again, like I haven't seen any numbers, so it's all arbitrary, right? It's all in the hands of the developers. They're the ones that really know. I'm really hoping that
I think I think where augmentation evokers have the most potential to be really good is like RBGs, actually. Because they have like a lot of, you know, of course, like buffing group damage is what they're designed to do, and of course we all know that in RBGs like team fight damage is really important. Not only that, they have like a lot of really unique utility options. Like they have this teleport stone they can trade their partners, where they can teleport up to 100 yards away to each other, which is pretty great. Like think about that in an RPG, like that's really practical. You know, say you want a ninja base together, you could just both teleport. You know, you could teleport to your friend 100 yards away. So I think there's a lot of potential for RPG specifically with augmentation evoker. I know that, you know, the bracket obviously isn't as popular as it has been in the past, but I mean that's just one thing to think about.
Yeah, I see that. I really hope that is nerfed in BGs and RBGs, because otherwise, that plus a Vengeance Demon Hunter just being able to, cover the map so quickly, it's going to be crazy. Like you're not going to be able to catch anybody. The person's going to grab the flag, and they're going to be able to travel from one keep almost to the other end of the map. It's
Yeah, I wonder how it's gonna work, like with LOS and stuff. Like if you could like go on roofs easily with it. I don't know any of that information. Because there's a lot of practical, like gateway is already a really really strong mechanic when you have a warlock on your team. Being able to gate. Now having, of course, it's like a health stone that they make. They make you a stone, and then they can trade it, I believe, to one player. They put it in one player's bags, and I think you can only give one person that stone to teleport. But in any case, yeah, as you mentioned, you can get some pretty wonky map movement with that. Yeah.
Unless using that stone makes the flag drop. That's about the only
Yeah,
way.
who knows? I mean, sometimes they do that, right? Don't allow you to press certain things while carrying the flag.
Well, we'll see. But I think you're right. I think this is definitely going to change up what is the meta for RBGs. So let's see, what else do we got here? So they have the upheaval. So that's the one where it throws people in the air. And then deals volcanic damage. The breath of Eon, so you fly to the targeted area, exposing temporal wounds on enemies for 10 seconds. Temporal wounds accumulate a portion of the damage dealt by your enemies, and then critically strike the enemy for that amount. For 1.5 minute cooldown, replaces deep breath. So that one's kind of neat, I think.
Yeah, it's just an additional like small little modifier they have, which is put a debuff on people where they take more damage, and I think it actually appears as damage for the evoker. Like if you buff your teammate with that, you're technically doing the damage as the evoker.
Neat.
So yeah.
Okay. So it's not showing as like your friend's damage. It's just so basically it's a bleed that's going to appear on the enemy, depending on the amount of damage that your allies have done on the enemy after so much time.
Yeah, it's like there's that one arcane mage spell, Touch of the Magi. It works kind of like that. Like you put the debuff on someone, they take a certain amount of damage, and after 10 seconds, it explodes and deals a bursty hit. It's quite a bit. Like if you can pump into Breath of Eons, you can get a pretty big hit, as you can imagine. Like storing 15% of damage over 10 seconds, that's might seem like a small number, but that if you're doing, I don't know, 50k DPS, right? Just do the math. That's quite a big hit at the end.
Can you imagine that with a secret technique?
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
So I'm gonna Ebonite my rogue. They're gonna stack some modifiers, secret technique, and I'm gonna Breath of Eons, and then whatever doesn't kill them from the secret technique is gonna pop off. And oh my goodness. Okay. Now I think those two are arcane, so I'm pretty sure it's damage if you can get rid of the arcane debuff, be it some sort of a magic dispel, then it should get rid of those, right?
I don't remember if it's a physical or magic dispel. I don't know. But
pretty
if
sure
it's a magic dispel,
yeah,
then yeah, it can be removed easily by most healers.
Well, I think that's the whole thing is the augmentation, the theology behind it is that they're bronze/black, so it's taking those two types of magic and mixing them together, and I think it ends up being arcane is pretty much the only thing they could come up with to call everything, so it's all arcane magic they're doing.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Anyway, all right, so they're a bit of a damage dealer. They're mostly like they do these support things to help out teammates. but I think they can kind of stand on their own a little bit too, right? Are we thinking honestly? Are we thinking that this is going to break the meta? Like people are warning.
I think we'll definitely see a change in the meta. I don't think it'll. I think it depends on how broken it is, and I think sadly we won't know until it goes live. With all these things, everyone's kind of like, "Oh, it'll be fine," and then someone will figure out. And I'm actually gonna throw the blame onto Nethy here because this is going to be something that Nethy probably does. Is they'll find some absolute busted way of the interactions here and just completely and totally steamroll everyone. And in that regard, then everyone's going to start doing it, and then it's going to be out of control. So I think we've got to wait and see. I think the game is primarily buffed for PvE, and everyone wants to play PvE and play the new thing and absolutely smash it. And so I think what's going to honestly happen is we're going to have augmentation demo lock or augmentation sub rogue, as we've talked about, that are just going to absolutely steamroll people. So we'll see. Could be interesting, but I think it's definitely going to change the meta. And I think we're going to see either people are going to absolutely love having a support class as like a second or sorry, I guess third, or they're going to hate it.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's already some classes or some specs in WoW which are like almost pseudo support roles. Like Shadow Priest, for instance, has a ton of utility. It has an external buff with PI. It has off healing, has MD. It has assistive CC. So I don't think it's like completely out of left field to have a spec like this. I think we've already seen glimpses of a support spec in WoW's history. So I also, like, evokers aren't necessarily the most popular class. I think they're kind of lower on representation compared to other things. So I can't imagine that you'll have a bunch of people just instantly re-roll. And so I don't think we're going to have like a Ret Pally situation, for instance, because I think Ret Pally just by default is a really popular spec to play. And that's in combination with the fact that gearing was really easy at the end of last season. That's why we saw like a bunch of Red Paladins. I mean, I think gearing is going to be easy starting on the the 1.5 patch. I'm assuming they're going to uncap Conquest here soon, and so maybe we'll see a small spike in evoker representation, but I wouldn't imagine anything remotely like the Red Paladin population explosion. So I wouldn't be too concerned on that end. And also, yeah, I think it's going to take a little bit of time for people to figure out exactly what comps augmentation evoker is going to work best in.
Yeah.
Again, I think it's probably going to do best with these things that like hit really hard, like sub rogue, maybe enhancement shaman, but maybe not enhanced because it doesn't have an MS effect. So I don't know. It's hard to really predict that side of things. Of course, like Shadow Priest does really well with the sub rogue, but Shadow Priest also really does well with Arms Warrior. So it can I can either see it going two directions where it does really well with these small, like these burstier, snappier specs like Sub Rogue, or works really well with like more dampening type things like Warriors. You can either win by attrition or just win by just big damage. So again though, we'll have to just see how people choose to play it. But those are my predictions.
Preservation, augmentation, boomkin.
That'd be a weird looking color scheme.
It would.
The raid. Sometimes you just look at your raid frames and you're like, this looks weird, like seeing duplicate colors.
Green, orange, green.
You guys are laughing, but I'm fairly sure that's what Nethy played. No, not obviously that, but they played Preservation, Balance Druid, Feral Druid for Gladiator this season. So it's plausible when things are busted.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm thinking. We'll have to see. I think it really depends on what other, if they even have any more CC. Not really see anything per se.
We'll need to wait and see, won't we? I think that's honestly I think we can make as many predictions. I think like all specs. They're gonna new specs or new things. They're gonna
Mhm.
be fun in the sense that they'll do like if you're playing one, they're gonna be fun. It's gonna add a weird dynamic, and we'll just have to wait and see how it plays out because eventually we'll figure out what to do.
Yeah, I'm just waiting for the skill cap tier list to tell me how good augmentation is.
Exactly, and also if you, as we said, if you want to get a more in-depth look at something along those lines, you should definitely check out the technically PvP code for skill cap.
That's right.
Love it. I love it. Okay, a couple other things. I think warlocks, the new races that they're getting. So they're going to get Night Elves, Draenei, Lightforged Draenei, Pendaring, Culturin, Tauren, High Mountain Tauren, Mag'har Orcs, and Zandalari Trolls can now become warlocks.
You know what? I actually think Zandalari Troll could be a really based pick.
Yeah.
Because you port and then press the Zandalari Troll heal thing.
Hmm.
And like
Yeah, I
suddenly
can
you're
see
like
that.
100%. Because that's like
Yeah.
the one thing that I feel like is was like really missing from Warlock is that okay, yeah, I can get away from these melee, but I kind of need some heals. So if I like port behind a pillar and they're really far, and I just press that, then my heal is good to stay in the CC because I can heal myself.
But Gift of the Naru has the same thing. It's 20% of the heal, but at least that's not channeled. The Zandalari Troll you have to channel for 6 seconds to get full 100%.
But it isn't Gift of the Naru like over a period of time, like it's like a hot.
Yeah. So Gift of the Naru, you just press it and it just does its thing. It's a 20%.
You could also shield. You could press Unending Resolve and press your Zandalari Troll ratio.
You could, yes, also press that, and that's kind of big.
That'd be huge.
Or you could proc precog. If you get precog, you get a free 100% heal.
You guys, I picked the kick. I'm pressing Zandalari heal.
Just
why not?
Just take it all to the face as you're healing yourself up, and they can't do anything to it. Oh my gosh!
You're welcome, guys. If you see a load of Zandalari Troll Warlocks on the high on the ladder, then that is, I'll take that. Take that win.
Can't wait for Demo Warlocks to be more tanky. Jeez Louise.
Oh my gosh!
I started playing Sub Rogue recently, and oh my goodness, like Demo Warlocks are my number one enemy. I cannot. It's so unfair. I can't one shot them. It's so unfair. What the heck? It's ridiculous. Imagine not being able to one shot something as a Sub Rogue. That's how I feel.
Just stack more mastery.
I'm trying. Warlocks are too strong. Can't beat them. I get axe tossed and I get sad.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about the bull rush for the High Mountain Tauren being able to charge for a second and knock down enemies for a second and a half?
I always forget that ability exists.
Yeah.
To be honest, I'm always surprised when I see someone press it. It looks so goofy, like
it kind of does.
And it's only it's a 1.5 second knockback. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I don't think that's.
It's a pretty quick. It's only a second. It's not like you charge the map or anything, but.
No. You go High Mountain Tauren for the 1% extra versatility, of course.
Oh, that's true too, and the damage reduction.
Yeah. I think I really like High Mountain Tauren. I had a macro once where on Bull Rush, my character would both scream moo and do the / moo. So you'd kind of like run at someone and go moo, and then like you'd also moo at them. So although they couldn't hear what you were saying, they could definitely see the moo emote, which was great. So
that's funny. Yeah. Oh my gosh. So a couple of things I pulled out of the other patch notes. Updating player totems and pets that are immune to buffs and debuffs are now only immune to buffs. This is primarily a PvP change to allow damage over time effects to apply to totems so that all specializations have a reasonable means to damage them.
I mean, this is a major nerf to Elemental Shaman and Resto Shaman, so...
Okay. Yeah, I do feel kind of bad though for like Affliction Warlocks. Historically have struggled to kill totems. I think that is a interesting game balance dilemma because some classes can so easily snipe down totems. Like I think Red Paladins are pretty good at it. Trying to think who else. Like anything with like a ranged instant cast ability. So I think, I mean, this change kind of makes a bit of sense. I mean, it's a huge buff for Affliction Warlocks, and I mean, let's be honest, like, I don't think we can be too upset if Affliction Warlocks get buffed. Like,
I'm not
they've
upset by
struggled a
it.
little bit. Yeah. So yeah, I think this is an interesting change. I think for sure, yeah, it's a big shaman nerf,
Mm-hmm.
no doubt.
It's also pets, so that means hunters and demo locks.
No, I mean, you
think
can
it's
already dot Hunter and Demon Warlock pets. I wonder if
But
what
this is
that
now
means.
also okay. So damage
what
over
is that?
time, is that not also like AoE things? So like concentration, death and decay, or is this
I
just strictly focused dots?
I think it's just dots, like agony.
Okay.
You know, you agony a totem, it doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
You shadow word pain a totem doesn't do anything.
True.
So I think that's the goal with this
Okay.
change is. But I mean, there's some like wonky interactions that
Yep.
can potentially happen with that. Um, like for instance, I think assassination rogues can mark for death kill totems like this. They could just boom, 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 like sniped, mark for death, you know, envenom, mark for death, envenom, mark for death, envenom every single totem, and you know they potentially could get some massive damage rolling with that. You know, reset cooldowns if you're
Mm-hmm.
playing sub, playing mark for death. But yeah, there's a lot of weird sort of potential interactions that could be unintended because of it. But for the most part, I think it's a good change.
All right. I'm personally, as a person who likes to play an Affliction Warlock, being able to dot totems and watch them die, I'm happy. Sorry, Jake. Not really sorry.
I mean, it's mostly a rest of shaman nerf, really. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there was always you could always kind of kill like Sky Fury and other stuff like that. Like a lot of the elemental shaman stuff. I guess healing stream as well. You could, although obviously that has been nerfed recently, so it's not as much of a problem. I think I feel the most sorry for rest shamans who have struggled with healing tide being
Yeah.
just stomped, and obviously their own healing stream totems being stomped. So it's hard.
Yeah. True. Okay.
The that next change though that you've put on the show notes, I think is a pretty dramatic change for a few specs.
Yes.
They're buffing hybrid mana. I think across the board. I don't know if there's anyone who's left out of this, but for instance, like Shadow Priest, if you press your power word shield currently, I think that's like half your mana bar. So that hybrid role has kind of been a bit limited by the fact that mana is so restrictive for non-damaging spells, with the exception of dispels. Right, there's that dispel problem. Shadow Priest can spam dispel, but you can't shield more than twice in a short period of time, which seems a bit weird. So I think that's overall a good quality of life change to bring back that hybrid feel to a lot of these, quote unquote hybrids. So I'm down with that for sure.
So for Shadow Priest, their mana pool is going to go from 50,000 to 250,000.
Yeah, and I think they're adjusting some of the mana costs of other spells to
Yeah.
to compensate.
Flash Heal is going to be 10% of base, up from 5. Power Word Shield is going to be 10%, up from 5. Dispel is going to be 14% of base, up from 2%.
Yeah, there you go.
So, yeah. Current ending is going to be 4%. So, they're quintupling the mana pool and doubling some of the costs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, as I said, like if you ask any Shadow Priest, like they feel miserable pressing Power Word Shield. Like sometimes you just have to.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you have to off heal, but then you shield, you throw in one flash heal, it's like boom, you're like two abilities you've just like used the majority of your mana bar.
Yeah.
Which
And now you can't damage.
Yeah. I mean, luckily damaging spells are cheap. You typically can, right? But it's the fact that you can't really access that hybrid part of your toolkit as easily as you probably want to, especially in
Yeah.
PvP sometimes. I think that's the goal of this change.
Yep. I think you're right. I don't know. Like I understand the idea behind hybrids being able to off heal, and that should be a thing. At the same time, I'm not happy to have the healer stunned and trying to go in for the kill and can't even move a health bar because the non-healer is able to heal as efficiently, if not more so, than the actual healer. With the exception of obviously a paladin, if they can bubble and lay on hands or something like that. But that's like it's a one time, and then it's like 5 minutes later they can do it again, right? So,
See, this is the interesting thing is that people forget that back in the day, back in the sort of, and I say this in quotation marks, the golden era of WoW PvP, specs were very easily able to, like hybrids were able to heal themselves. Like look at Ellie and Wrath of the Lich King Classic. You can literally spam lesser healing wave and just top yourself in like 3 or 4 of those casts, like, and then you wouldn't that bad. Like it's not very sort of, it's a very mana efficient spell. So like that
doesn't mean they should still have that though.
No, I understand. I get it. You like should that be a thing? No, maybe not. But I think I like the way that it works in retail now, in the sense that like, yeah, you know what, those heals do a lot, but you yourself fairly heavily. And I think that's how it should be. The problem is that there's a lot of hybrid specs that actually, first of all, don't use that much mana when they do it, and then also have stuff that just kind of like gives them health back without really sort of needing to use mana, which is why prop pallers were so annoying, because they've never and they did so much healing.
So I have some trivia for you guys. Okay, this is very good WoW trivia. So I don't remember what expansion this was. Swapsy told me this, and I was like, my mind was blown. There was some expansion where the mana cost of Bloodlust was different than the mana cost of Heroism, even though they're the exact same spells. And that expansion, everyone was just playing the race that had the cheaper Bloodlust, because the cost of Bloodlust was the cost of Hero or Bloodlust was so high that if you pressed it, you couldn't really do anything else. I mean, that was a huge complaint for enhancement shamans. Like here they have this, unique cooldown that they want to press, but it takes like 75% of their mana or something. So people were just playing the race that had the lower cost of Bloodlust, so they could just press one more ability after they Bloodlusted. So I think there's like some clear examples where like the limitations on hybrid mana can feel really bad from a player point of view.
Sure.
Bloodlust I think is like the quintessential example, because that thing just ate out your mana at some point. So yeah, I think there's kind of like as you're suggesting, Garza, there's like kind of like this middle ground where hybrids should be able to do hybrid type things, but maybe not too many hybrid type things, right? Like sitting there spam healing while their healer CC, like maybe that's not as good for the game as it, maybe that's not healthy, but definitely being able to power word shield more than twice seems like a reasonable thing for Shadow Priests, or I think Feral Druid, I don't know if they're going to ever buff Feral Druid regrowth healing, but I know right now it's like considered to be relatively low. So yeah, I think the hybrid role in recent years has been watered down quite a bit and kind of changed more into a damage role more than anything else. So I think this is good for the identity of those particular specs to have greater flexibility with how they spend their mana.
Yeah. I'll say I think it makes sense that at least everything should be somewhat evened in the costing of it. You're just looking at Feral again. Their maximum mana quintupled from 50,000 to 250. Regrowth though went from a 25% cost to a 10% cost. Swiftman 10% cost. Ryuju 5% cost. So some ups and downs there, but it looks like it all seems to be falling into that same 10, 5, 15 numerology. Yeah. So at least things are similar costing, at least for the healing spells. We'll see. I guess that's the thing. Like, this is just for mana cost. This just means that if they want to push the buttons, it doesn't them. It doesn't, it doesn't rob them of being able to do the rest of their abilities, which fair. That makes sense. And then the rest of it's just numerology of how much effect does pushing that button do. And that's a whole other tuning knob that they could do. They could, change it so that a feral regrowth is, 10% below what a resto druids is, or something like that, maybe. So, I think I'd be okay with that. I'd be okay with it being the same cost if it didn't do quite as much, because I don't. At the same time, I don't want to be finishing any sort of PvP and see a hybrid where their amount of healing done is equal to or more than what the healers is. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I think that's a good benchmark. So speaking of healers, Holy Paladin, they're getting a major rework. I think we're running a little bit out of time. I don't think we have time to go through all of this now. We spent too much time talking about lore. I'm not sorry though, folks. I'm not sorry. I don't know. Is there any highlights there from the Paladin Holy Tree that really jump out at you all? I'm trying to think what there's some stuff I remember looking at, but I can't remember what it is now.
I mean, not personally. I won't lie. I've not looked at much of the reworks. I've heard little skips, little bits of pieces about the mage one. Obviously, that's coming up soon.
I don't think is the mage happening this time too. Oh, it is too. Frost. Yeah. Oh boy, that wasn't even on my. Okay. All right.
Frost is coming.
Yeah, Frost is getting a major. Actually, all of them are. There's Fire, Arcane, not so much, but Fire's got a number of changes. So does Frost. All right, back to Holy. I think the big one, Glimmer of Light, is like massive buff. 5% more healing, 1,000% more damage. Like Holy, now capped to 3 targets. I think that's huge. Holy Shock, taken off critically strike tables, no longer able to critically strike. I think it's pretty big. I think the rest of it, though, I think it smooths out of its abilities. The tree, some new talents, Daybreak, Rising Sunlight, Glorious Dawn, some pretty good stuff there. Not seeing not a lot of things that are jumping out at me as like PvP specific, though. I think really what we're going to see though is just, I think they're going to be more mana or similarly mana efficient to others, but I think we're going to see definitely some more ability where they're going to be able to heal and damage. I don't think they're going to be quite the same as they were before in season 1, though.
Knowing what I know, the limited knowledge I have about Mythic Plus is that Holy Paladins are really, really good in Mythic Plus. Like arguably the best healer for high keys. So it's kind of interesting that they are right now underperforming in PvP. So if they're already good in PvE and they're doing a redesign, and I don't know what makes them weak in PvP. That's the thing. Like I mean, people tell me that their healing output is low, like they have to rely on wings. But I mean, I hear the same thing from the PvEers that like, okay, their sustained healing is good, but it can be very proc dependent. So I don't know. If the redesign, if they're already good and they're getting redesigned, if they're already good in PvE, they're getting redesigned. I don't know what that implicates for PvP. So, and I haven't looked into how exactly they're reworking things, but it's just a weird little parody.
Yeah, I think the redesign was more about removing the requirement of specific things as being the only way to again go to the whole thing where people can make choices inside of a tree and still not feel hampered significantly by making another choice than the one choice that rules them all. My understanding as well is the rotation of it. I feel like from what I understand from a number of people, the rotation for healing as a Holy Paladin is It felt clunky and wasn't really fun. And I think that's the other thing that they're trying to do. Unless maybe I could be wrong on that, but I thought that there's some clunkiness there that they're trying to do to make it feel better. But I think really it's mostly about just, make certain choices meaningful, so then it allows for multiple choices, not just one and done.
Right.
I don't know. Death Knights.
Well,
Sorry.
I was gonna say I know the redesign they did to warriors really early on in the expansion definitely helped warriors out. So if they're making certain choices a bit more accessible, then I think that's probably gonna overall help Holy Paladin. Sounds good.
Yeah, I feel like that's a lot of what they're doing. Is that honestly, it feels like this one right now, the Paladin thing is kind of catching up to what they already did for Paladins overall, especially that, and just kind of closing the loop with the whole talent tree. But a lot of these redesigns it feels like they're finally catching up to what they really wanted the expansion to launch with on day one, but they had to stop because they had to ship, right? And I think that's really what we're feeling now, is they're now able to focus on finishing the things that they really want to do, and they have kind of the time to do it, right? Because if they're going to be doing this all throughout the expansion, they literally have 2 years to sort out all these trees and make these changes to really flesh out all these different specs to the way they wanted them from the day one ship for this expansion. So back to Death Knights quickly. So Death Knights again, major rework. Actually, I'm gonna see if I can get Flark to come on and talk about Death Knights, but from the looks of it, they're going to be significantly better than they were a little while ago. And why am I not seeing any of the... I can't find it now. What the heck? I thought they had a major rework. Now I just see a small buff. Unless
sure if they did. Did they?
I thought, but at the top of the patch notes, the PTR notes, they're like nothing. Unless maybe are they? Oh, sorry, it's the next one down. Wow. Okay. A-bomb is going to be reduced by 50% in PvP. In the meantime, Pillar of Frost is going to get buffed by 40%. That's down from 60. But the stacking strength is going to be now 50% more effective. Mastery buffs. Yeah, it's just all across buffs. So Frost DK is definitely going to be more powerful, where you're definitely going to feel it in PvP. Obliterate damage increased by 12% in PvP, up from 8. So 20% total, up from 8. And then also Unholy is getting a slight rework as well. This is actually looking really good as well. Virulent Plague is no longer reduced. Death Coil does 125% more damage in PvP. I think we're definitely going to see the return of Death Knights in PvP from this.
As long as they're not bringing back Heartstop Aura, I'm okay.
I do not see Heartstop Aura. You're good.
That was the worst. That was the worst thing. I don't know if you played that much during that time period, but that was so bad. That was the most awful part.
I didn't mind it as a Death Knight.
It's okay when you played the Death Knight. It was just, the thing is, I think the thing that they've started doing with Death Knights and stuff, they're looking for a way to make classes feel unique. But when the class itself has just a perpetual thing that kind of makes your class unfun, it's just not the best.
Yeah. No, I think that should have been a push a button to make the feel, not just have it always there. Just
like
being,
a massive thing.
Yeah, just being in proximity is not nice. Okay. Let's see what else. Demo locks. Demo locks are getting a bit of a rework. Bit of a nerf, if I remember correctly. Do you know anything about this one, Big?
I do not know.
Why are you
I
guys
know
making
very
me do all
little.
the talking?
I know very little about the reworks, to be honest. I've not really paid much attention to them, so I think it's sort of my kind of go-to is that you're not going to really know how it is until you kind of get in there and actually play it yourself. And
Mhm.
majority of us are going to kind of get into the game and kind of like, okay, yeah, you know what, these guys talked about all of this stuff, but realistically speaking, I'm not going to really know what's best for me until I get in there and play.
Do you have could you link the patch notes or in like
They're in the
maybe
show
in the
notes.
stream on the show notes? Okay.
Yeah. Right at the top.
Oh, it's top. I
Yeah.
see.
Yeah. So I'll just read it for Demonology. The developers notes they're working to reduce peaks and valleys of Demonology throughput. So the depowering called Dreadstalkers, and then they're going to compensate through other rotational spells. So basically, Dreadstalkers are going to be they're nerfed, and then they're going to increase. If not mistaken, I think they want to return back to Shadow Bolt some more.
Interesting.
And pull away from no, Demon Bolt's actually increased by 20%. And yeah, a few other things. I thought they were going to increase or do something to try to increase the amount of shadow bolting as well. But anyway, all that to say, basically, so if you're playing against a demon warlock, demonology warlock, you're probably going to see them like after. So they were just nerfed, so I think they lost a little bit of survivability, and now you're going to see less of that peak and valley, and it'll flatten out the damage a little bit more.
Well, I'm
which is
seeing
better.
a lot of buffs to Felguard damage, so
Uh-oh.
I wouldn't be so optimistic that things are going to dramatically change because I think like right now, like I posted a screenshot on Twitter, like this Demo Warlock did 40% of their damage just their Felguard hitting me, which seems a bit ridiculous.
Can't you just loss it though?
It chases you. What do you
Yeah.
It
The
runs
Felguard?
after you. Yeah,
this is
it's
the
the guy with the axe.
Oh, I'm thinking of the other one, the big one,
The tyrant.
the tyrant.
No,
Yeah.
I was line of sighting the entire game. That's the thing. I was running. This warlock casted 5 Hannah Gold lands in like a 5-minute game, and did 85% of their damage with pets, and like 40% of that was just the Felguard. So I think overall, I mean that's kind of a the people talk about Demo being easy because it's a pet class. I think it's a bit weird that you can do like 40% of your damage passively potentially with just a Felguard. But that's just me. And some people enjoy it, but I don't enjoy playing against it, if I'm being honest.
I think yeah. So here's a question: why didn't you just entangling roots the Felguard and then run away from it?
I was playing a rogue. I was like canonizing.
That's right. Okay.
To crippling poison it. Yeah. I mean, the rooting pets works, but because I've been playing mage too, and in solo shuffle against Demon Warlocks, I just like root. I'll just Nova Ring of Frost their pets sometimes, but at some point you just have to get hit. Yeah, you can't avoid it, and
Fair.
you're getting coiled and stunned. They're gonna connect the damage at some point.
Yeah.
So
I mean, you can't avoid damage all the time, but okay. So I don't know. I guess the difference is that the amount of times that you can call Dreadstalkers versus the number of times they have a Felguard up maybe that's the difference.
I think the thing is that pets have a weird interaction nowadays than they did in the past, where they just zoom at you like in a really weird, like unstoppable fashion. I mean, this is the thing that kind of weirded me out, was that like BM hunters just pop with their cooldowns, and you go and sort of root the pets, and then 5 seconds later they're just suddenly on top of you again. It's kind of like, okay, great. Well, you can't stop it, and they do so much damage. It's sort of like, if you're going to have something that's so front loaded into the pet, like I feel like the damage should be reduced. So it's kind of like, okay, this is a slightly consistent thing, but not too much.
I just think the fact that Volpera is a viable race choice should indicate that maybe Demo is a bit wonky right now with how their damage output works.
100%.
Because, yeah, I didn't. I mean, it's so. I remember I was recording a clip for a video on a Demon Warlock. I was getting really annoyed. I was like, "Why are imps just randomly spawning? I'm not doing anything." And then I was reading the tooltips, and you just periodically summon an imp randomly without doing anything. It just pops out. So I was like, "This doesn't seem right."
Yeah.
I was like,
Well,
I can't get this clip right. This imp keeps on appearing. What's going on?" But it's just automatic.
he's just pooping imps. That's all.
It's pooping imps. Yeah.
All right. Mages. Anything from mages we should be worried about?
Oh, they're making Ray of Frost the most giga Chad broken ability I've ever seen.
So
You get some sort of
save your
you
interrupts
you
and kicks
get
for that. Is that
yeah, you get some sort of modifier. I don't remember what causes it. I think maybe blizzard damage or something. Like every time blizzard deals damage, you get a buff that stacks up to 8 that increases your Ray of Frost damage. But you can get 8 stacks automatically when you press Icy Veins. And so the damage modifier is pretty big. Like Ray of Frost already hits pretty hard in the current patch. I believe when I play Mage, it hits for around 250k, if I remember correctly. And I think with the modifier they're giving it next patch, I mean it's going to hit for like 400 to 500k over its entire channel. So that's going to be a scary ability. I don't know if mages are going to be frost mages are going to be broken, but definitely think they're going to be in a much better position relative to this season, which I think right now they're arguably one of the worst range DPS specs in the game for PvP. They just have to cast way too much. So
yeah.
I don't know.
And we already talked about how hard casting versus mobility, how that affects the game. So
Yeah. Yeah, there's a reason why you don't see many arcane mages in arena because they only have one spell school and have to cast a lot. And
yeah.
meanwhile, BM hunters can just do, run around the map, sending their pets on you, do the same amount of damage effortlessly. So
I'll say it looks like Fire Mage is also getting some love. So I'm not sure. I mean, Fire Mage has been pretty strong historically for the last several expansions, or last few expansions at least. Living Bomb getting increased, but Pyro, Fire Blast, Fireball being reduced by a bit. So it seems like a bit of a, looks like kind of an up and down. I wonder if they're trying to flatten them out the same as they were talking for the other ones, trying to give more consistent damage and get rid of some of the big ones.
yeah, I mean, right now fire mages are really good. They're kind of a bit gimmicky though. Like the way they play is a bit awkward in arena. Like they do their best when they're just planting their feet at max distance and casting, which is a bit unusual for fire mage. If you think back to Shadowlands, they're kind of always in your face, DBing your whole team and whatever. But right now, I mean, they play more like a wizard, which is a bit weird. And I know, like for instance, that living bomb damage is really like laughably low right now. I remember beginning expansion when Ruki had a Twitch clip where he'd press living bomb on someone, and the person would just AFK, and the person's health would go up. Like its damage is so bad that it couldn't out heal passive healing. So I'm not surprised that they're giving that a much needed buff. But I think fire is. I mean, mage in general has, I think, a bit of an identity crisis this expansion, and I hate to go on a little bit of a tangent here, but I made a tweet recently that after learning about PvE more, I just think that it's very obvious to see where PvP might be heading because, for instance, in these mythic dungeons or in these mythic raids, you need a lot of mobility, right? Like you're constantly moving out of mechanics and you're constantly readjusting your positioning. So you need to have the ability to do damage while on the move. And if you think about Frost Mage, for instance, they can kind of struggle to do damage on the move. I mean, they have some instant cast abilities, but for the most part, they have to plant their feet, which is a bit outdated these days in PvP. If you're planting your feet, that means you're getting hit. If you're getting hit, that means you're dying. right? So I think it makes sense for Frost Mage to get a rework. Kind of makes sense maybe for Blizzard to shift Mage in a direction that's a bit more mobile. And I don't know how much these changes are actually going to accomplish that, but if they're buffing Living Bomb damage, that might indicate that they want mages to do more damage while moving. So
Yeah.
If you talk to mage players, they'll just typically tell you like, yeah, the clash just feels a bit weird right now. That's kind of the feeling people have. It just feels outdated compared to other casters who can do a lot of damage while moving.
Which is interesting because that kind of like that's the whole glass cannon idea is
Planting your feet.
plant a feet and hope you don't blow up while you blow something else up. So okay.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we'll have to see on that one. Honestly, I didn't research that one at all because I was focused on other things. Sorry, folks. One last one. Field Medic's Hazard Payout, adding in the Medal of Conquest, which is the BOA token that awards 30 conquest. Worth it?
No. No, I don't think so. Like, man, at that point, I'd rather just sit a queue on my DPS alt than win 10 solo shuffle rounds to be able to buy. No, wait, how many? You'd have to win 20 rounds or like 18 rounds to be able to buy a 500 conquest piece.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't seem correct, right? Am I crazy? Like, it doesn't seem like a good balance of reward.
But you're already healing, really, right? Isn't the idea behind the payout is to try to convince people it's like, oh, that's the thing, I'm going to go do that now. So I wasn't healing before, but buy extra 30 conquest.
Think of the opportunity cost. Okay, if I play a healer, maybe my solo shuffle queue is instant, sure. But I'm going to spend 20 minutes in that solo shuffle. And if I go 3-3 or better, I'm going to get that reward. But that just means I spent 20 minutes to get 30 conquest when I could just play my DPS alt, queue the same solo shuffle, and get the same amount of conquest or more that I would have gotten from playing my healer. It doesn't seem like a correctly balanced incentive.
But you sit a 40-minute queue for a 25-minute game just the same. So now but
it's 30 conquest for 20 minutes of work on a healer. So in an hour I get 90 conquest. I can get 90 conquest and more than 90 conquest per hour playing DPS doing the same activity. It doesn't make any sense why it would be this bad.
Fair enough. That's good. I guess that's not even as the gameplay, not including the length of time you're sitting queue, though, right? Like what are the DPS queues right now?
It's like 20 minutes, unless you're really high rated.
Okay. People are making it sound like it was like 45 minutes just to get one solo shuffle.
I think it's 45 if you're really high rated, and it's closer to like 20 if you're average rated.
Okay.
Matchmaking in solo shuffle right now is its own. That's a crazy issue that we could probably devote an entire podcast to. Like, there's a lot of wonky things happening with that right now.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think 30 is way too low. I think it should be at least like 90, if I'm being like honest. 90 or even like 150 to match the honor one or something. That seems a bit more enticing.
What about you, Jake? How much conquest would you have to be able to get as a token to make you switch from LA to Resto?
Oh my god, nothing. Yeah,
you did it for free.
No, I wouldn't do it for free. It would have to be exceptionally expensive. I wouldn't. The point is, it would be wasted on me because I don't think I could ever see I'm not a healer player. I have no incentive to do so. I wouldn't want to. I don't think I'd ever find myself doing that unless I was really, really bored. I think I don't know. I don't think there needs to be I think there should be an incentive. I just don't think it getting extra conquest just shouldn't be the one, but there should be something that does entice you into it. But I wouldn't know at this stage really what the best the best form of doing it would be.
It's really interesting right now because I guess Mythic Plus is having its own healer problem where healers aren't wanting to queue. And so queue times
Yes.
for Mythic is really ridiculous as a DPS. And so
Yeah.
it seems like it's just kind of a game-wide issue with healing and how it doesn't feel as rewarding or as at least empowering as it should feel, you know? Like I know people are doing relatively high keys even without healers these days. So that begs the question, like what's the role of a healer in World of Warcraft? Like is this something that people enjoy doing? And it seems like the answer to that question is there's a lot of people who don't enjoy healing for some reason. I can't put my finger on it because I actually enjoy healing right now. But
Okay.
yeah, something about healing a lot of people don't like. So they need to figure out whatever that something is.
Well, is it because we're talking really solo shuffle, not just generic healing in total, right? So I feel like it's always the feel like it's you or nothing. Like it's either you. Yeah, if you
What
win,
I
if you win, it was the GPS that won, and if you lost, it's because you as a healer failed.
Yes, and here's the thing. I truly believe that the problem stems from the power of defensive cooldowns. So let me explain. In both Solo Shuffle and Mythic, if you're doing pug, if you're pugging a Mythic, you're relying on your DPS to press their defensives to live through mechanics, right?
Yep.
Same thing applies to Solo Shuffle. You're playing Solo Shuffle, you're relying on your DPS to press their damage reduction because there's certain numbers you just cannot heal through. Of course, you have your own cooldowns as a healer, but you need to budget those quite well. If your DPS aren't doing the job of pressing their defensives, suddenly the DPS problem becomes a healer problem. And so I think that's it right now is a lot of mechanics in Mythic are tuned around the assumption that people are going to press their defensives. A lot of damage in PvE is tuned around in PvP, is tuned around the assumption that people are going to be pressing their defensives. And so when that fails to happen, it feels really bad from the healer point of view because it feels like it's your fault. When in reality, it's your DPS who need to be pressing their damage reduction. And this applies to both Mythic and PvP. So I really think the strength of defensive cooldowns is what is preventing healers from really feeling like they have a really fleshed out role currently. Because too much responsibility lies on the DPS to play correctly. And that can't happen 100% of the time. Of course, DPS are going to make mistakes, and DPS mistakes just become healer mistakes.
Yeah.
They get outsourced, if you will, to the healer.
Yeah. Hey healer, why didn't you heal me? I died. It's like, well,
Yeah,
I was in CC. Why didn't you wall?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So I think that's the problem
has you blocked.
Yeah. One heal? Question mark.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
Geez.
And I think you're right though. I think that's really the crux of it. And really, to be honest, this is a video game. People play it as an escape. It's entertainment to them, and the idea of that stress is too much. And I don't blame them. I don't blame them either. But then again, if Blizzard has had a habit of being able to figure out ways to sorry, Blizzard has a habit of finding out ways to put down some carrots to make people do things that maybe they didn't want to do. Do they need to do that better, or do they need to just not bother and just understand that this is just a psychological thing that you can't force people to overcome their psyche. They just hate it, and then they hate the game, and then you end up with all those social media and forum posts and everything about how Blizzard's making them do something they don't want to do.
We're gonna make a skill cap video about this problem, and it had we thought of the most degenerate solution to this. Okay,
Okay.
so bear with me. I believe it's in Guild Wars where every season there's like a little bar you can fill up by completing PvP tasks, similar to the trading post, you know.
Okay.
And so once you hit the there's segmented rewards along that bar. So say you fill up the bar 25%, you get a box that has something in it, whatever. It's a piece of gear. 50% is a different reward, 75%, whatever. The end reward is obviously the one that's going to be the most enticing. So our idea for what the end reward should be would be those black market auction house boxes. The ones that have random stuff in it.
Yeah.
That way, you play into people. It's degenerate because it's essentially the gambling. You're like you don't know what you're gonna get. But I think that sort of reward is what they need. Like something that's like enticing enough, like a black market auction house box that you're like, ooh, I wonder what's inside. Could be a spectral tiger or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Right? It has to be something like that where you don't know what the reward is, but you want it. That's what I think they need to do is those black market auction house boxes. That should be the what entices people to queue arena. Something like that. Maybe not exactly, but you know what I mean. Something big and randomized. And if you can get people to chase that, I think that would be a sustainable way to have people continuously queue.
Old classic Naxxramas lookalike gear.
Yeah. Oh, just be careful. Don't go too far.
Okay, that was too far. Too much. Too soon. All right. Here, let's close this out. We are, holy moly, is it 2 hours gone already? Oh,
crazy,
my gosh.
actually.
Wow. Okay. Quick before we do I'm going to ask the one thing we would change, but just quickly, is there anything else from 10.1.5 that you think, if Blizzard was listening right now, if there's a dev watching this right now, what would you say? Oh my gosh, please do something about this. Is it going to break PvP? It's going to, or this is not enough. Something needs to change because this is, you broke my class. Jake, you first.
I think please just have some focus on PvP in general. Just fix everything. Fix all the problems. There's too many problems. Fix them. No, I think just be mindful of augmentation going forwards. I think that's the kind of just the thing. Just got to watch out for it. I think I'm very nervous of the idea that that this will be a bit crazy, really, more than anything.
Okay.
So,
all right. Thank you. All right. Big. How about you?
The one thing I would change.
No, the one thing you change. Anything else on 10.1.5 that you think, if you could speak to the dev right now, there's like, oh shit. Anything you think our listeners should know about?
Yeah, there's a talent right now for Resto Druids, a PvP talent called Reactive Resin, where if you purge a hot off the druid, you get a stacking debuff that slows you, and then after 3 stacks, you get silenced. I think that was a band-aid solution on a problem that Resto Druids have had for a long time, which is get their hots being spam dispelled. And I don't think that solution feels like was the best, because I still think that there needs to be this sort of counterplay, like the ability to spam dispel Resto Druid should be like a viable option, but it feels, how should I say this? It's very hard to explain. I think the way they redesigned Reactive Resin kind of made it feel bad from both perspectives. Like as a druid, you don't really care about it and you don't notice it most of the time, and from the dispeller point of view, you just get really annoyed. So I think the changing back Reactive Resin to something else would make me very happy.
Okay. All right. So it's not something that hasn't been done yet that you think 10.1.5 should have included. Okay.
Yeah. Well, they did it. Yeah.
All right. I think, and I didn't see anything. I feel like there's something missed there in the reworks and all this tuning that they're doing. For Ellie Shaman, I feel like Ellie Shaman is once again dodged the proverbial Nerf bat, and I feel like there's something that's missing there that they should smooth out the RNG a bit or do something because Ellie Shaman is still feels like it has that too high of potential to just obliterate somebody.
I feel like you're doing this to just hurt me right now.
No, it's not personal.
Oh,
It's just Ellie Shaman in general.
I see.
I can't help that it's about the class you love the most.
Yeah.
It's not personal though.
That's what they all say.
All right. One thing you would change though. Seriously. Let's do that. I'll ask you first, Big though. What's one thing you would change?
I don't want that black market auction house container. That's what I want. They should put that idea. I'm gonna make a forum post after this. That's how that's how you make Solo Shuffle. Put the RNG degenerate box. I want to farm that thing for a chance at some mount or some tabard.
Okay. So what's it? X number of rounds won as a healer spec.
You get a neat little box. Who knows what's inside of it? Could be a bracer you don't care about. Could be tier 3. Could be a mount.
Yeah.
The point is, you're gonna chase it.
It's true. I believe that. Man, I would do it.
Yeah.
Jake, how about you? What's one thing you would change though?
Let me think. I think the one thing I would change is I'd love to have communication. I'm going to keep bringing this up. I think communication would be really big.
Yes.
Just more communication, just letting us know where we're at, what you're thinking about. It's anything. Just kind of, even if it was just sort of like Warcraft PvP devs on Twitter, just going, hey guys, we know that you've said this is a problem. We're working on it. Nothing else to say on that front, kind of thing.
Yeah, at least acknowledgement of things. Oh my gosh. I want dev interviews. I want PvP dev interviews. Yes, I want the Twitter. I want them acknowledging stuff, but I'd love to hear, what's coming, what they want to do down the pipe and everything. I want that as a dev interview, and that's a little self-serving. Devs, it's technically PvP at gmail.com. We're open. We're available. Just let us know. We'll be there. Honestly though, yeah, I want to, even as talk to Ben Ruki, talk to Bajura, talk to anybody in the PvP community. We have devs talking to raid leads, we have devs talking to PvE content creators, we have devs talking to hardcore classic. We have hardcore classic servers coming on. All that stuff. I would love to actually have a dev come and not once an expansion or every other expansion. All right. Let's do the news quickly and then we'll get out of this so that Jake can go to sleep.
All right. Who ordered up an extra large can of whoop ass?
All right. PvP news. So AWC Cup number 2 finished on the 25th of June. Echo won first place there. Followed Golden Guardians got the NA win. Not really a big surprise there. They were the same teams that had won Cup 1 as well. And then last weekend, Cup number 3, once again, Echo took first place. But Liquid, Sidu's team, went in and took first place. Full run through the lower bracket. That was actually very surprising. And you talked about that originally, Big, with how Trill had come up with his own personal version of the sub one dance spec and just obliterated people.
It's funny. I literally think he just copy pasted the PVE build. I think it's literally just the parsing one in PVE, and he did. Yeah,
he PvP'd. He added some PvP stuff to it, but it was basically the PvE spec. Yeah,
which makes sense because I think rogues do a lot of damage in like Mythic Plus. They do. Yep, they're on the higher end.
It does. It even said there's if you guys haven't seen it, go to the VOD on YouTube or on Twitch. At the end of Cup 3, they actually do an interview with Trill and talk to him, and he admits to it. He goes, I just found the spec. played with it a bit, played around. He tried the 2 Shadow Dance, didn't really like it, went back to this other spec and was able to do more with it and felt more comfortable with it. So that's the one he went with. So it's quite spectacular. I think, and somebody just said, is that, sorry, Mortai. I know we're doing Cup 4 today. Are you saying the Liquid just kicked Luminosity out of Cup 4? Wait for him to respond on that. Hot fixes. So mostly hot fixes. Nothing is all PvE really. It's actually, speaking of your reactive resin there, they fixed an issue that caused reactive resin to trigger to put you into combat. So apparently they got rid of that. Oh, okay. So Liquid is staying in the uppers, lower Luminosity is now in the lowers. Okay, cool. Thank you. Trying to think what else. There's Blood DK's got a slight damage increase. Which if you want, go check out Bigmex's stream, and you'll see a Blood DK, a Fistweaver, and a Warrior taking out a jungle team. Ouch. That was just tonight. Then Diva Havoc Hunter, they got a slight buff on their damage. Again, most of this was PvE based, but some of it does bleed into PvP. Oh, and that's right. And later on, they also did a buff to, they did some changes to balance, where the cast time for Cyclone and Entangling Roots was nerfed with the Alcan Adept, so it slowed it down a little bit. And Solar Beam is only going to be a 6-second silence instead of 8 seconds, which puts it in line with many of the other abilities as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
I'm just trying to think if there's anything else. Yeah. So if you guys want, those are the things that really kind of jumped out at me. I didn't really see anything that really jumped out too much more. Warlock's the Mortal Coil got a 50% nerf on its healing. Soul Link with a pet, 50% nerf in PvP. And the Profane's Bargain increase to Soul Link was also nerfed by 60%. So that was done to help nerf tankiness of demonology in PvP, which, as far as I understand, helped it quite a bit. Helped everybody else, actually. Helped that one feel less tanky. Trying to think if there's anything else. So other things, BlizzCon tickets were announced for BlizzCon was announced. The ticket sales were finally announced, and those are going to be happening later on. So there's going to be 2 waves. The first one's on the 8th. The second one's on the July the 22nd. And then once the July 22nd is done, there's going to be some resales allowed. $300 US for general, $800 US for the Portal Pass, which is your executive lounge, separate registration and security line, and some early access on Friday and Saturday to the lounge. I didn't see anything announced for esports other than Overwatch.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's horrible. That's the kind of thing that kind of a bit sad.
Yeah. So I know I'm not going. Jake, you're not able to go. Big, are you still planning to go, or the lack?
Yeah.
Well, even with the lack of WoW esports.
Yeah, I'll go. I like going to BlizzCon regardless.
Okay.
There's been previous BlizzCons where I've gone and I didn't even watch the tournament. So I just want, I do think it's really fun to watch the tournament live, like for sure. It's an amazing experience, but I always thought it was kind of a secondary experience to the whole thing, just kind of one small part.
Fair enough. I honestly, the couple times I've gone, I've absolutely almost solely sat in the arena watching all the arena games. So if anybody goes, highly recommend. At least go watch some of the tournament stuff. It's great. But yeah, like Big said, there's so much more to the whole event than just sitting in a hall watching a bunch of arena. All right. The other thing, I briefly mentioned this earlier, the classic hardcore servers were announced. Specific rules of engagement for PvP. Jake, you want to talk about these?
I think these are going to be really interesting. Specifically, I'm really interested by the Duel of the Death. So I think what we've got. The first one is you must manually flag for PvP, which obviously I don't think there will be any like dedicated PvP servers, but you choose that death if you so wish. Obviously, no arena and no battleground queues, so it's just going to be totally open world. War games are possible, but death is still permanent. I mean, that's going to be really spicy. So we'll see what happens with that. And then obviously Duel of the Death, which is basically a Makgora if you're a keen lore aficionado, which I think is really cool. I think this is going to be really interesting to do. So I'm really excited to see that happen. I think there'll be lots of people kind of going to level 10 or sort of level 20 and kind of finding these neat spots and then going, okay, yeah, duel to the death. And then obviously the bigger content being, I've got level 60 and we will duel to the death and see what happens. But obviously it's going to just be rogue players winning.
Mm-hmm. I think the other thing with the duel to the death is the ears. I think that's going to be weird. Do you hear about that part?
What the bit with? Wait, say that again.
The ears. So if you duel to the death and you win, you can have a permanent
Ears.
Yeah, ears, as in like what you hear with. There's going to be a buff on you,
okay.
and you're going to be collecting ears from the people you've killed. So if you walk along and you see somebody with a buff on them that has 6 ears on them, that means they've killed 6 players in duels to the death.
I thought you said something different then.
No.
Anyway,
ears.
moving swiftly on. Yeah. No, ears. I think it's cool. I think like that's going to be kind of like, whoa, you don't want to go mess with that guy. He's got like 7 ears. Kind of thing. Hate that. As opposed to 7 years.
Yeah, 7. Yeah, 7 years for killing somebody. I guess the only and this is a good question because you can only duel to the death above level 10. But do you think somebody's actually going to be doing this at level 60, or is this going to be like a level 30 thing or below, and then nobody's going to bother after that because they don't want to risk? Because that's a lot of time investment.
I think if you're an ordinary player, it's more than likely you're going to get to level 10 and then do something, or even level 19 or kind of like twink level is when you probably want to do a duel. I don't think I think it's going to be level 60 is going to be something that streamers do. I think it's very much geared towards sort of like streamers. This could be a really great way of streamers getting a lot of attention by doing massive duels to the death in a massive sort of battle royale, kind of forfeiting their sort of that'll be the thing because they're the only ones that will benefit. Like I'm leveling my character to do a massive duel of the death at level 60 kind of thing. That's kind of the sort of options they're going to be doing.
Fair. That'll be interesting. Well, we'll see. We'll see. How about you, Big? Are you gonna start streaming your duels to the death?
Probably not. I'm more of a softcore WoW player, not a hardcore WoW player. So
Okay.
I do think it's an interesting concept.
Fair. Yeah, I think it's a neat idea. I as well will not be doing it.
Yeah, I don't think I will be either. So.
As Jake said, though, that's excellent stream content. Like,
yeah, it is.
Man, I bet Asmongold or someone's gonna probably hold a tournament, like a massive tournament, and it's gonna be a brawl. It's gonna be a bloodbath.
That'll be interesting. We'll see. All right, shout outs. Do you have anybody shout out, Big?
Yes, shout out to the Echo and Method MDI players who I've been working with over the past few weeks for PvE content. It's been really fun. I'm learning a lot, and a lot of talented, helpful people in the PvE community.
Indeed, there is. Jake.
I I am going to shout out. I'm going to shout out all the WoW PvP players on Twitter, atting the Warcraft devs and making their voices known, because we wouldn't nearly know enough about what's going on, about how the consensus of feeling is, without people basically speaking up. I think it's better to not be silent. It's better to say something. I'm not saying harassment, but I'm saying it's better definitely to say something. That's for sure. So big shout out to you guys for just kind of taking the time to care enough to make your voices known, because there's a lot of people that don't care.
It's true. I'm actually going to shout out Casse and Sharabear for helping me complete a +10 key last night on a dungeon that I wasn't comfortable tanking. And they came along and helped me out immensely, giving me a whole bunch of tips so that I did it correctly and learned a lot along the way. So shout out to them. And actually, quick shout out to all the other people in our community that are on our Discord server and talking about PvP in the Technically PvP channel and helping us stay abreast of all the things that we may have missed from social media. That's the show, guys. Big. Do you want to do the thing?
Oh, I'd love to do the thing. So you can contact us directly. Oh, I should preface by saying if you want to contact us for whatever reason, you can do so with a tweet to @technically_PvP or by an email to technicallypvp@gmail.com. You can also join our discussions on the Bonus Roll Productions Discord.
Also, you can visit the Bonus Roll website to find the podcast directory with us and many other great shows at www.bonusroll.gg. This directory also has a review system, so head on over there and tell everyone what you think of your favorite shows, including our own.
Indeed. So thank everyone for joining us and listening to our discussion tonight. We'll chat with you next time. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Ciao, ciao.